We have one more speaker in this session, Jesse Janosky. Needs no introduction, but I'll try. He is the founder and principal of JPM Technology Consulting, where he focuses on the design and implementation of systems and the growth of internal staff and college partnerships for his clients. So give him a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody. I guess I can hear me. All right. Well, DJ battle is not what I thought I'd see at SIMD. I thought it would be like a Star Wars battle or Star Trek battle or something else in the sci-fi world. So it'll be interesting tomorrow. But welcome. Thank you for your time. And let's talk a little bit about balancing software versus hardware agility, mostly focused in broadcast in SIMD2110. So around 5 years ago, for me as a broadcast engineer, one of the most significant changes in my job and my day-to-day life was the first SIMD ST2110 standards were published. And starting from 2017 to now, I went back and I went at every MTS and I saw over the last 8 years, most of the presentations have had some part of 2110 in there. Whether it was security, which is the big topic right now, or if it was a new type of standard that came out, 22, JPEG XS, or IMPX. And that was when my career started to change. And then I went in 2020 when COVID hit. And we found out that we can do a lot of things from home. So right now I'm showing you what you can do from home, because in 2020, when I thought I was going to change my career and I was going to go into SIMD2110 and I was going to learn IT and I was going to be this all-time engineer, everything shut down. I'm stuck in my house and I got a next opportunity. The opportunity was a little small startup called the NFL was going to take cell phones and they were going to do an NFL draft from their house and they were going to produce it in the cloud. So what you were looking at the actual design. I got to be one of 3 on the team that we did using Larix Broadcaster, using NDI and AWS VPCs. This is the NFC general managers and coaches, and we took this down to Raleigh, North Carolina. And this is where everything changed, because now we went from a baseband world where we relied on physical hardware and physical connections to not only to an IP world, but also a remote IP world, which everybody here is talking. So now to today, we have XML, DMF, and Catena. But like everything else, I forgot to pay the paywall, and I'm not going to be able to learn about that because I didn't subscribe to everything that I have, because that's what it is today, right? Buy the subscription, learn about something. How does it go? So in order to get versus software, hardware agility, I want everybody to take back. Yesterday, I sat during the Deloitte talk, and they talked a very extensive hardware software. So last night I went back and I said, what are we missing? Well, I want to step back and I want to take it back into my world. So fast forward, I become a broadcast engineer. I look at my tools. When I have a tool bag, I have some BNCs. I had a crimper. I had a stripper. I used to go and take an oscilloscope to look at my black, or I would have my little Videotech monitor, and that was my day-to-day job. I learned those tools. I was completely complete. I knew a little bit of IT, but not much. I had a legacy architecture. I would give every switch stack for every device that I had. So if I had a KVM network, I would have a switch that just ran KVM. I used the backplane of this network switch. It was secure. It was safe. If I had a control network, I'd put all my control equipment on another stack, and that would be completely air-gapped. They couldn't talk. They couldn't converge within each other. I'd color code the cable so I don't have to die in a spreadsheet. I could easily identify, but it was a sit it and forget it. My SI came in, my consultant came in, they did the configuration. If I needed to add a device, all the ports were provisioned, I'd plug it in, and we were good to go. Then come mostly audio over IP. Now it becomes a converged network. Now I have to start learning about quality of service. I had to learn about stacking switches. Now my network became converged, so that KVM that used to be on its stack or my audio network, now it's all on one stack and I'm using VLANs. This is where our first introduction, before 2110, we had to think about bandwidth calculations. It's about 400 for a 1080p, 1920 by 1080p screen to go over a KVM, about 400 meg. So you have to start thinking about, if I have a set of switch stacks and I'm trying to put multiple KVMs on for a 1 gig port, no worky. How do we do that as a broadcast engineer? So now I have to look at tools like this. And these are the tools now that I use it every day now. So as you can see, starting from the top right, I have Wireshark. Wireshark penetration tool, disclaimer, do not load this onto your network without asking permission from people. It is a very intrusive tool, but we use Wireshark regularly. If I work with a different manufacturer, they ask me for packet captures. This is a very unique tool. Something that's just little is, to my top left now, is just an IP scanner. What is on my network? What IP addresses are used? Which ones are opened? Then now I have dashboards that are for my network stack. So I went back and learned CLI, but now I have to learn this dashboard. And then the main one that everybody refers to is GitHub. So this is the AMLOG GitHub homepage, and any repositories or any documentation, now I have to go to GitHub. So those BNCs and then those BNCs and those crimpers, they all went down to this. This is a $100 switch from Amazon. This is about a $200 port sniffer that I tie to my phone, that I can find out what port VLAN assignment is, what the switch management device is, and the host name of the switch as well. I carry these around in my book bag. These are my tools. So now, when we think about it, we have an everyday architecture. So everybody, we just heard a presentation about cloud. So you have your Google private cloud. You have your AWS cloud with SMPTE 2110. And then we have JPEG XS, and we have different formats. But the ones that people don't think about is, what about all the applications? What about Microsoft 360? What about the Office applications we have? Or what about applications that manufacturers make that we go off on? So the question is, how do we preserve broadcast reliability while embracing IT speed? Well, we're going to break it up into two, hardware and software. Hardware we use because, one, it's predictable. We know what it is. We know the components of it. It's basically one use. It tells us CPU, memory, disk speed. We have specs. We have data sheets. The uptime, we know it's either always going to be on or it's always going to be off. It's reliable. How many people here have had an SDI system? They commissioned it. They turned it on. They waited about 10 years. Then it broke and they were like, oh, I got to buy a new one. A lot of us. So we have that reliable performance. And it was pretty standard. If I had a manufacturer, something broke, I knew who to call. That was the manufacturer. They told me I either needed software or I needed a hardware upgrade, but they knew exactly what I need. So fast forward to now, we have software. Software is a lot more agile. It's a lot more adaptive. It's scalable, and I can automate it. So it sounds like software would be the logical case. But those benefits that hardware brings might be what's needed in some spaces. So in hardware, we have all of our resources reliable 100% of the time. So if we're in live broadcast, which I deal mostly with, we usually use a lot of hardware. Our hardware is purpose-based. We know it's going to be there. We know it's going to work. We don't have to maintenance as much. We don't have to have a plan. And it's designed for 24/7 operation. It's going to be very stable. It's going to use FPGAs. And those FPGAs now have adapted, because of software, to use different personalities. So a lot of us have made hybrid plants, and those hybrid plants need processing. So everybody knows I'm in a baseband world, and I have a signal, and I want to distribute it. I use a DA, and the DA goes out to multiple areas, and I count how many I need, and it's point to point. So it's one point to the next point with the camera, then I want to do a return, and then I want to do a monitor so that I have a return, and I can just count my spots. Well, with hardware now, I can reprogram my FPGAs to take the place of those cards that I was using in my FPGAs. My frame sync, my up, down, cross, and I can use it for compression. So now I can make hardware almost agile in that I can perform different personalities with the FPGAs. So software, remember when you're in a room, and especially one of the other areas we work in is sports stadiums. Anybody walk into a sports stadium control room, there's about 20 utility PCs. You go to the engineer, you go to talk to them. Oh yeah, where's the audio PC? They're like, that's utility PC 5. Where's the engineering PC? That utility PC 2. It sounds very, very wasteful. We have all these utility PCs. Well, here comes virtualization. Virtualization was very foreign to me. It was something that I had to learn. I still am not 100%. I couldn't manage a cluster, but I know the basics of it. I can take those 20 PCs. I can use all the resources of my server now, and now I can limit, as most people talk about, with my power load, my consumption load, and I can stagger updates. With that and using software, we talk about APIs, RESTful APIs. These can broadcast specific information that I can grab and I can build in to other software platforms. How does that help you out? It helps you that's almost a translator for me. If I'm not familiar with one interface, but I'm familiar with the other, that manufacturer might be able to leverage that API to make it in a useful space that's readable and graphical that I like to see. The feature sets, when using software, also, they're done in monthly. If most people think about it, broadcast, we live by 2 dates. We live by NAB and we live by IBC. That's what everybody thinks about. What are they going to broadcast at NAB this year, and what are they going to debut at IBC? So as we go back around, we got thinking of software, we're constantly bringing in new feature sets. And we can plan use cases with certain vendor products. So as Ron Burgundy says, that's easy. Let's build both hardware and software, leveraging our needs and support. Everybody will love it, and we'll save a lot of money. It's that easy, right? Probably not. So this is where we're going to take a little turn, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the mistakes that I've made. I've been doing this. 2017 was my first IP build. It was very small. It was static routes. And these are some of the mistakes that I have made in that decision in hardware and software. I believe that there isn't an and or. There's a harmony. How much software do I want to dive into, or how much hardware do I want to keep? So one of the common mistakes is we only trust ourselves. How many people have worked with an engineer, super bright, very, very deep in the weeds? They can tell you every single piece about a piece of gear, but they only work with themselves. 2110 brought to us that we cannot work with ourselves. We're all bright, intelligent people. We have been in this industry for over 100 years as SMPTE, moving and progressing. We have to trust everybody else. One of the things I did is I only trust myself. I only tried to conquer it alone. Technology can't be learned in book or a manual. Back in SDI and baseband world, everybody remembers like the old Harris and Leach trays. I would just pick up the manual and I would read it. I would read a book. That's not applicable anymore. If we're going to use software-based design systems, we have to build labs. One of the things that we cut first is we would always cut our lab budget. The lab budget would go down, and we'd say, oh, we don't need one scope, or we don't need that server to test anything. We don't need a test lab. We'll just do it in real time. I can figure it out. That won't fly anymore. The other thing we do a lot is we just hire a system integrator, a consultant. This is very important, but we need to be engaged. How many times do you go to a place, they set it up, and now they don't understand what was the design, and they're just manipulating of what they have? I look at this as in sports venues with video boards. Most of them, they use some type of splicer, or video renderer. They build out certain blocks at certain pixels and sizes, and then they don't know how to manipulate it anymore. So they just go into Adobe and After Effects, and they just build graphics that fit into those boxes. They actually don't know the functioning. This is inherent in, oh, it's not my problem. When they finish the project, I'll learn everything else. That's how I'll do it. You need to be involved in it. And the big thing is staff is not willing to learn. I think everybody says that. I think staff is willing to learn. We're just not willing to give them time and listen to what they want to learn about. That is the biggest thing. That is a misconception. Staff is always willing to learn. They just want to be heard. The best leaders are the people that listen. So how do I go about this? Well, I start off with some pre-designed questions. I should always go in and say, what solution will my current team be able to manage? Do I have somebody? A lot of the times we use, especially in the 2110 environment, which I'll show you later as an example, we'll use complex control systems. A lot of the times that used to be able to be learned by a team. Now it has to be managed by a single person. Is there somebody that's interested in DevOps? Somebody that's a Python programmer? Somebody that understands Node.js? What is my team's strength? Second, if the system is not critical, what's our tolerance for testing? This goes back to our lab. If we know that camera in the studio can't go out during the 6 o'clock news, or during a live event, the graphics bug, the score bug can't be taken down, we know that's a critical piece of gear. But hey, the get loud graphic that goes in the third quarter, have at it. It can go down anytime. So do we really want to go down the redundancy rabbit hole for pieces of equipment that aren't as critical? Most people just go and they set a standard and they don't do it as a use case. Number 3, what equipment education do I need for testing and development? I was one of the people that, when I went into college, university, I didn't appreciate it as much. I can't get enough of it now. I love picking up books. I love reading. I don't think I read a book till I was like 23. And I can't get enough about it. And I think you can always get education. You can always learn, but you need to do it in a group. You need to encourage it. You need to ask questions. We all have experience in many different avenues and many different places. So reach out to somebody. People love to tell you about what they do. Ask them. Ask a question. This will help you with those selections. How will this affect our other operations? Well, or our operators. This is another thing that we don't look at. All what people want to do is come in and do their job. Just because we're moving to cloud, or we're moving to 2110, or we're staying SDI, doesn't mean that our operations have to change. We don't have to force feed workflows and projects down people's path and force them to change. We can adapt as well as engineers and designers to make their job the same at day 0 as it was before we did a project. So how do we do this? Is we document. Before you got a CAD package and you just said, oh, this is my CAD package. This is DV234610. And we knew that 46 was the rack number and 10 was the piece of equipment RU down. And 46 was the green cable that was 40 on that rack, that open gear frame. Well, guess what? In a land of software, we don't have that anymore. We have one network connection. We have one fiber connection. We might have a -7 with two connections. We need to think about other things. How do we document workflow designs? In a 2110 environment, when I have a -30 stream, let's say that one device is a 1-channel 8 flow of essence, and then another one's 4 channels of 4. I have to run that through an audio groomer, an audio shuffler, to then spit out to whatever my flavor is. How do I document that? I can't document that into a CAD drawing. I need to come up with a documentation pattern. I need to sit down with the end user and we need to talk. We also need to talk about resource allocation. So going back to software, one of the things that I had to go and learn about is I had to learn about CPU points. That picture that I showed of the NFL when we did AWS, there was a website, it was called cpubenchmark.net. Never heard of it in my life. It's a place where they stress test CPUs. Every process has a value that they pull off of and determine that's what the value cost is for that software. With our bandwidth calculations, we do it with CPU and GPU. What does that service take in resource allocations? What does it take in bandwidth? Also, multicast schema. Anybody who's done a 2110 system, we know that there is a multicast schema for every day of the week. Everybody has something different. They all can be broken and they're all wrong. You talk to an engineer, we love talking about ourselves. We love talking about what we came up with, but they're all different. There is no standardization and basic network information. So that's a lot to document that we are used to just doing in a single package. That's what brings the cost up as we go. That's why most people talk about moving to different platforms, because it's very cost effective. And I want to say that one of the things is very dear. Next is password managers. I've worked with many integrators. I've worked full-time for an integrator, design integrator before. You would not believe how many people have a SharePoint file that has every password in the book that is just there displayed. As long as I've been an employee once for them, I have a credential, I can hit download, and I have all the keys to the castle. Please use password managers. It is so important. Most security breaches are over the shoulder or somebody putting something, a post-it. Bad actors do happen, but most of the times that we have security breaches, it's because of bad practices that we do as engineers and commissioning agents. The last couple are write a list of what's most important and share it with the group. This goes back to where we're talking. A lot of the times where we have mistakes is because there's that single point of contact. There's that information hoarder that did it once. We've always relied on them. They're the smartest person in the room. They've done all of our projects, and why would we talk to somebody else? Well, guess what? That person, they didn't grow up shooting stuff on their phone. I think that I get maybe 4 or 5 calls from friends in the industry that work in the collegiate space. I worked in the collegiate space for 6 years. I know about 4 directors. They go to every single university school before a football game. They shoot with their iPhone. They walk up to the engineer and they say, how can I get this on the air? That is not uncommon. People, not only younger people that grew up on phones, other people feel like that they are camera artists. And they shoot on these and they want to take it and put it in quick. They want the readability. So make sure that you talk to people that have experience. Always invest in your network and test equipment. This is most important, more than anything that you can put in. You gotta take care of what the brains are, what drives everything. Everybody wants to say, well, the network switches are too expensive. What if I can go to another port and split it out? What if I can get a 400 gig switch and then split it out to 4 lanes of 100? Or let me take my 100 gig spine and I'll do 4 lanes of 25 and I won't buy that extra leaf switch. This is your most important things. Would you buy a car without the motor? Would you buy it without a transmission? Would you buy a 4-cylinder if you're trying to buy a race car? You probably wouldn't. And then write a monthly test plan and upgrade plan. 2110 and software-based systems, they need constant maintenance. Those years of putting something in a rack, letting it go for 10 or so long years before it fails and then replacing it are done. They are completely done. Most of the calls that we get that I hear about that are unsuccessful projects are because they didn't have a plan. They didn't test it. They put a commission system online. They would wait a month or two. Something would die. They wouldn't know what it is. They'd call up the person that installed it, the integrator, and they would say, hey, come, you got to fix your gear. It doesn't work. Well, what doesn't work about it? Have you done a failover test? Do you check it? is your blue network down? Yeah, we don't know how to do that. You were here. Just come fix it. You have to make a plan. Now, these are the things that most people don't consider. Anybody ever get handed an Elgato Stream Deck? I think everybody uses them. I did the Super Bowl in 2023. I had a KVM system. I got held 15 Elgato Stream Decks. The operators for all the graphics packages, they did everything on Stream Decks. When I did a design, I thought I did one of the best designs. I never thought that I'd be hooking up Stream Decks to KVMs. We figured it out, but it was something I didn't think about. When I was at IBC 2 weeks ago, there was an audio company. They were going to the reality TV space. They didn't have an interface. They didn't have speakers on their unit. They only transmitted to an HTML5 page and then through a web app. That's how they're moving now. People listen to it on headphones. They hook it to an iPad. They carry it around. So when you think about it, think about bring your own device users. Everybody likes comfortability. And if I can use it at home, why can't I use it at work? You got to think that through. The software needs hardware to operate. As I said, software and hardware decisions aren't separated. It's a harmony. What do we want to do? Do we want to load up more software and hardware, or do we want a single instance of software running on a single instance of hardware? Protocols to be used. Think about Tally. Think about protocol translators. Think about triggers, GPIs. How are those going to interface into our plans? And yet again, I can't stress it enough. Doing updates regularly. So one of the things that I want to highlight here is the second to the last one. When I was moved to Phoenix, Arizona, I really dove down into trying to learn IT as I had no background into it. If everybody in the room who's concerned about security, you should go to CISA and you should ask for the updates. CISA is the cybersecurity government entity. They put all vulnerabilities online. They'll update you. They'll email them to you. Obviously, Windows 10 is about to be end of life. So you're going to need to know what you need to move forward of. It's super easy. You just go down and put in your email address. You can specifically say what you want to learn about, what you don't want to hear. The top is SMPTE, obviously. I wouldn't be here today without taking classes. I've had the fortune of being able to teach a couple, which greatly opened my eyes on how little I know. If you ever want to learn about something, try to teach it, because it'll be eye-opening of what you think you know and what you don't. They have a whole slew of virtual courses. I've taken 19 of them in my career. They're very good. And if you are somebody who would like to share their knowledge, please reach out to somebody from SMPTE, and they would love to have you share your knowledge, whether it's a webinar or teach. We're always looking for people. That's how we stay strong as a community. So please go back and do that. The other two that I've used, these are just personal opinions. There's much of them, but I use Coursera. Coursera was started with many of the Ivy League schools. Then it moved over to schools and universities through the U.S. and in the U.K. They have very many scholarships. They have a broad angle. I opened up a business 3 years ago. I took 3 classes on business management that I didn't have through Coursera. They have very generous donations that allow you to apply for grants. They'll let you take them for free, or you can pay for them as well. MIT, obviously the prestige. This is most known for their Python course. Python is very prevalent in in 2110 and control plane. If you want to learn more about Python or APIs, check out MIT. And then, heck, this is 2025. We grew up on phones. Everybody has everything readily available. Everybody has a different flavor or different way of doing things. Please, just go to YouTube. Find somebody you like. Always reference check it, because you never know who's telling you what. But it's not shameful to just go to YouTube, try to find something out. How many times do we Google something that we didn't quite understand, and we read 5 or 6 white papers? You know, the easy way to do it nowadays is ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever one you want to use. But there's nothing that beats somebody trying to break it down into the knowledge that you know and understand. So I promised you some examples. So I wanted to take some examples here. This was from IBC, from a vendor. They're software based. Some of these are hardware based. Some of these are software. Majority software. So this software base here is a multi-view solution. It allows you to take multiple video sources, IP transports, and project them without using the traditional card-based values. Right here, you're looking at audio transport and also an integration of an API from an elastic stack that's showing my packet loss. So this isn't only your traditional audio and video broadcast, but it's also a logging service that's put into one. In this one, as you can see, anybody who's taken a beginner Python class, this is your typical intercom and router panel. It looks like a normal broadcast setup, and this goes back to how we can look at hardware based. But if you look, the first thing you learn in Python class, hello world, on the buttons, this was a student, ran a small Python script to print out little messages on panels. This is the things that we don't think of. This is in a major NFL stadium. This is how CBS gets the clock and score. Old school 232. I blurt out the phone numbers so nobody calls them and they don't call me and scream. But this is coming from a Daktronics All Sport and then into a little 232 plug so the truck can get it and they know what the time clock is. These are not going away. These are legacy things that we need to think about when we're thinking about that hardware or software solution. Yet again, both of them need to be worked with at the same time. This hardware is not going to go away. This is two. This one, HTML5 scope page that now I can look at on an iPad, just like I used to have to do at my shading console. This was used in the World Cup. They put iPads instead of shading consoles, mounted them in because of the screen and the HDR quality, and didn't use the traditional. The far right is the same technology, but it's on an actual phone. This is coming from an audio monitoring device. It allows me not only to see a proxy of what I'm looking at, but it also gives me monitoring levels of my audio as well. And then this was a neat thing that I saw at IBC a couple weeks ago. It was by a company in England, just came out, and it shows how we're trying to merge them. So now, instead of the old patch-based labels, we were able to take our IT-based JSON files, and we are able to take LCD screens, and now we have flexible digital patch base. Pretty neat, right? $450. I don't know about that for 12 spigots of SDI, but pretty neat thing. And it's all done on the phone app. So, two things. I want to give you two polar opposites as we wrap up. Number one, this is an API of a gateway. This was a custom panel that was built. It was built for a major company. It shows me all the information I possibly can. If I dive deep and I trust the people that I work with and I work with my team and I try to understand, software can give me everything I want. I can find my MAC address. I can find where it's connected, what its multicast address is, what version it's on, all pulled from code that's already available. What's the downside? This is also a live football game. They're using AI for captioning. Anybody see anything bad? You're drinking your beer, you're drinking your water. Next thing you know, pee comes the whole way down my ribbon boards and I have to hurry up and cover. This goes back to my preparation and understanding how things work. Make sure that you're aware when things mess up, when things go awry. How do I fix them? How does it work? How do I not? This was from an Instagram post that somebody took a picture. I know the person that had to deal with it. I got about 40 emails the next day. They don't want to walk into work and do that. So with that, I want to say, everybody, our time is the most important thing we have. I want to thank you very much for your time. I want you to always remember, be curious with everything that you do. Give back your time. And it always seems impossible until it's already done. So thank you very much.
Any questions in the room?
Oh.
I have a quick one for you, Jesse. Yeah. You talked a bit about how, we have plenty of colleagues who they're busy, they've got their own personal lives that they've also juggling with their work, right? And they want to come in and they want to do the 9 to 5. We also have all these abstracted tools that are really useful to us and help us to work more efficiently, but they also help us mask a lot of complexity. So when we think about documentation within our organizations and within our teams, how do we make sure it's as digestible and understandable and useful to somebody who is new and 22 and fresh, and it's all new and there's a lot for them to get their head around, and a lot of unknowns and a lot of systems to remember exist and that kind of stuff, through to you and I or somebody in their 50s, or, all the people that need to read it and care about it and bother to read it in the first place.
Yeah, no problem. I'll give you the two scenarios that I've seen. First scenario is when I first started, I knew Harrison Leach because my first job when I first started was I had to go to every 6800 frame that was in ABC in Washington, D.C., and I had to mark every single card, research it, and find out what it was. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I don't think that's the right way. But what it does show me is, I think if with the new generation, we all want to consume as much as possible. When I first started trying to learn networking, I tried to consume everything. I would start with VLANs, and then I would move over to ACLs. Then I would go to different protocols like OSPF and ISIS and BGP. But I never sat down and dived in. So if we're in the mentor situation where we're the people that are documenting, we need to help steer the new entry level apprenticeships that they go and they learn one characteristic. If most people here, when they've done an apprenticeship, you start in one place for 6 months and then they have your roadmap to the next place of 6 months. We so many times think that our lives are busy or everything's going, that we don't take the time to actually plan, just like we do on a pre-build. And we don't take the time to plan. You go here for a while and learn everything that is, and then follow up. One of the things that I think you should ask your integrator before you pick them, do we do a post-mortem at the end of the project? I would say that 70% of the integration projects never do a post-mortem. And even if you talk to them, that is one of the most important things that you should demand. So what you demand from the people that you hire, you should always also demand for yourself and the people that you're teaching.
So we want to make sure it's possible for people to dive deep on a thing and not be afraid to dive deep on this thing and spend that time, right?
Correct.
What you're saying.
And the one other thing I would say is, don't discount them because they're new. A lot of people gravitate to traits that are very helpful that you might not be familiar with. So ask them what they're interested in, let them teach you something.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.